Hi, this is Abdul Bhartia, and welcome to another episode of TFR Rap by Reckon. And today we have once again with us Rob Hirschfield from AWS reInvent. Rob, how is the event so far?
Wow, the event is crazy. It's just like the AWS platform itself. It's sprawling. It's all over Vegas, and today was just the warm up. So Monday is a whole bunch of feature releases, and then Amazon threw out a whole bunch of deep learning, Music Composer, Racer, quantum computing. It sort of feels like they throw up a field of chaff in front of everybody before they get to the meat on day two.
It's more or less looks like a Black Friday for developers and DevOps.
Well, it feels like it's a whole bunch of stuff that is sort of at the edges. I come here, a lot of people come here for the compute platform and the infrastructure and those components. And those will come today and tomorrow where we learn about what they're trying to take care of from that perspective.
Looking at the scale of reInvent, who would you compare it with?
There is no comparison. reInvent is the biggest cloud platform. And just, a lot of people, myself included, come to because this is where everybody's coming. It's not necessarily just about AWS's platform. It's really about people who are doing things in cloud. So it's just this. It's hard to imagine. We talked about how big Kubernetes was last week, and this is 4 times the size of that.
Any idea how many total attendees will be there? Like 1 million, 500,000?
Not quite that many. It's 40. What I heard is 40,000. But an event like this has ancillary conferences and people show up bringing additional things. So I would put the number probably at double that. So it's probably 100,000 related people in Las Vegas for the show.
Yeah, I remember the biggest events I attended was VMware World and Oracle Open World. They were like 60,000 or 30. It's like, and it's massive, So yeah.
Those are very big events. reInvent has gotten even bigger, and the stakes are even higher. Right? They don't give analysts pre-warning of a lot of these events. There's a ton of embargoed information, so we're a little in the dark about where things stand for some of these major initiatives that they're doing.
Right. You said that Amazon or AWS, they have already made a lot of announcements before the event kickstarts. What do you think is the strategy of AWS with these events? Because sometimes a lot of, as we are talking about KubeCon, that there were no announcement as such except for a membership announcement where CNC was kind of controlling a lot of But here what do you see from news perspective? What is coming out and how kind of Amazon or AWS controls it, or how they left. I mean, from news perspective, how they use this event. I'm just curious to understand that.
Wow. Well, they actually have a conflicting narrative at this point because they've gotten so large. People are starting to bang on antitrust, too big of break them up. Concerns about them being so dominant of a player. And if you look at some of the announcements they have, they're getting into AI music, AI race cars, they're doing quantum computing, they're redefining the supercomputer was a big announcement yesterday with whole new ways to access storage, network, and disk. And at the same time, they're sort of making an positioning of, well, we're really not that big. We're only at 8% of the total IT market, which is actually an enormous player. That dominates pretty much everybody, even Microsoft in their heyday. We're not quite that dominant. They were from an operating system perspective, but from an infrastructure perspective, they didn't own quite as much stake, right? Amazon's building their own hardware. They're pushing around Amazon or Intel and AMD on chips. They're building their own network stacks now. It's breathtaking just how broad the portfolio is, and they don't show any signs of stopping. There was a really good interview with Andy Jassy on theCUBE. Where he basically tied digital transformation to Amazon and said, they're one and the same, which I think is way overly broad of a claim. You don't need to be in the cloud to do digital transformation. What you need is agile IT. But that's the type of messaging that we're getting. So both this very broad, Amazon rules the world, use us for everything, and we're not really that big. Just ignore us for now. There's a conflicting message.
I think the message. I mean, they know they are big, but they don't want to establish it because there may be a lot of challenges, even from antitrust perspective, to break it, and a lot of discussions are going on. So I think Amazon is really good at saying, hey, we are not that big. We are like, if you look at Apple, they dominate the market, but if you look at from that perspective, they have a small share. They don't chase the market share. They chase the cream, the pie, the big
Amazon, AW, just talking AWS, not even Amazon, right? They are pushing into all sorts of areas, including on premises, right? I'm expecting big announcements on their Outposts capability, which is going to be pushed on premises. They have a lot of edge capability with Greengrass, and they're making hardware for the edge, plus all of the Alexa voice, all the AI integrations. It is truly a breathtaking platform. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, I also cover their voice summit that they do every year. That is basically the whole community around Alexa and voice, and that itself is massive. Most people don't even know or hear about it, but when I attended it and I conducted interviews, like healthcare industry people from different. I mean, there are sub industries with Alexa where natural language development. The companies they are there who are doing that, and there are whole companies who are simply hiring talent to just record these voices that you use. So there is massive industry just in that small chunk of Alexa's voice. Forget about the rest of the. And
there's no doubt voice is a very important industry for computing. It's the next interface.
Yeah. So and they were all betting on just Alexa. They were not talking about other platforms that much.
And I think one of the things we've seen, just like with a lot of edge technologies, when you start talking about voice and that type of human interaction, AI, machine learning become essential to really delivering good outcomes, because you don't get a chance to give users feedback.
What do you mean by that?
So in a normal interface, you have a very fast back and forth. You provide visual information, a user clicks on something or makes a selection, and then you can prompt them through. So they get to confirm what's going on. With an AI, with a speech interface, the speech has to be analyzed, processed correctly, and then you have to infer based on environmental factors what actually needs to be done. You really don't have as much time or interface interaction for confirmation.
Right.
It can be really annoying for the voice to say, "Did you mean to pick peaches?" "No, I meant to pick antiperspirant." "Oh, wait, that's not acceptable." And then so you have a loop, and that can get really frustrating if you're going to push speech into hospitals and deal with nurses and doctors and things like that. Your example, you're not going to have time to have, "Did you mean the scalpel or the speculum?" Very different tools, and so you need to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, that is their initial phase. Second is that once you introduce these in those critical mission critical applications, what is the cloud goes down. Right now everything has to be pushed to the cloud. That's how all these cloud companies are working on. There is nothing about fallback that, hey, because you cannot even process all that machine learning locally on the machine. So if there is no internet during a surgery, the net went down or something went down, you're totally on your own. So they are building something like that. But my point was as you rightly said, that Amazon with AWS is going everywhere. What I was saying was there are like sub-industries within these subdomains that we don't even talk about. We just talk about Alexa, but there's a big industry within Alexa, voice interaction. So it's massive. And then if you look at Amazon, they are going into a self-driving car with Ravitan or something. And then they are going to space mining, and of course Jeff Bezos owns Washington Post as well. They own
the Amazon antitrust question is a serious one, but even if you pull this all the way back to just the technology and the platform, right? Historically, we would see a company doing AI and going very deeply into speech and AI and things like that. And what you might see is individually companies doing those things and excelling at them. So you might have a speech platform or an AI platform. What we're seeing with Amazon and I'm expecting this to continue over the next few days, is they are really working to be a completely integrated vertical stack. And so when
Right.
people are doing this work, Amazon really wants people to work at the very high application level and then stay in their platform for every technology analytic piece behind that, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
storing the data, whether it's analyzing the speech, whether it's doing compute on the actions, right? What we're actually seeing is the work that you're doing in Amazon's designs is floating to the very top of that
Mm-hmm.
stack, and Amazon owns all of the technology below. Um, and right now it's very disjointed. When people look at the Amazon platform, there's a lot of different bits and pieces. It's not come together as a real integrated stack. Uh, but I expect that'll happen over time as they figure out sort of how they can isolate the logic at the very top and then take over more and more at the bottom.
What does it mean for the industry in general? Because we have not seen, I mean, we have seen that that kind of dominance or monopolies in past as well. But from cloud perspective, developers perspective, DevOps perspective, is it a good
Yeah,
thing?
the industry's sort of split. You have people who are very, very excited, and of course a lot of them are here because it's Amazon's event, about all in on Amazon, all in on a platform, go, 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 let them take care of this technology stack. And then you have a broader industry coalition. I typically go more on the multi-vendor, on-premises, self-controlled infrastructure, and keep hoping that we can see a bit of a renaissance in that. But there is definitely a pullback that says, wait a second, if one company owns this whole stack, that makes a lot of us nervous about what happens to innovation. Amazon is without a doubt amazingly innovative today. Our historical trend lines have been
Mm-hmm.
once you own enough of that vertically integrated stack, your drive to innovate dissipates, and your drive to be cost competitive once you've pushed the competitors out also dissipates. It's a healthy debate. There's plenty of people who are saying, look how much we can get done. Look how much we have to do. And today the technologies, as amazing as they feel, are actually very immature. And connecting them together is hard. Building them is hard. It's installing them is hard. Right? There's actually a lot of challenges.
How do you see the market evolving? Because we see at one side, Microsoft is there, then Google is there, and then Amazon is there, and then there are private cloud with OpenStack and all those things.
Yeah.
I mean, your personal view that how do you think it will evolve over time? At the same time, the discussions that you have here at reInvent, what are the sentiments there?
So, unless people collaborate and work together in industry, this Amazon and Google and Microsoft to an extent will continue to drive the operational experience faster and faster. And then basically it's going to be very hard for people who are building their own components and their own infrastructure to compete until there's more of a sea change, which is not the outcome that I would prefer to see. As much I use Amazon technologies; they're an impressive array of capabilities. But I agree with some of people's concerns of having single vendor and very locked in capabilities, and then you end up very focused on, well, I optimized for Amazon or I optimized for Microsoft. Today, there's no doubt those do create good outcomes for people, but I think the reason they do that is because we haven't built the user experience, the operational experience that we needed to on IT alternatives, where people can actually own the stack themselves. And that's really the difference, right? At this point, we're saying we're never going to own the infrastructure. If we continue down this trend line, we're just going to let Amazon or a company own the infrastructure forever. And a lot of people I know who are very big open source advocates, in some ways, they don't always get concerned about somebody else owning their infrastructure. They think they can own the code. And I don't think there's a very big difference. If you want, control and independence and the openness of being able to modify things, you're going to need to be able to, own the infrastructure all the way. And so we're sort of at a tipping point where people need to figure that out. At the same time, Amazon and Microsoft and Google and the other cloud infrastructure companies are, very focused on improving the operational experience, more so than the people who were, the Dells, HPs, Lenovo Supermicro, who are selling you servers and then sort of saying, here's, good luck, have a great time. VMware has the same challenge, right? We have to have a better operational experience for IT. And that's my takeaway from Amazon more broadly, is they've done an amazing job of focusing on that customer experience, that operational experience from an IT perspective. That's what they sell if you strip away everything else.
Yeah, because sometimes as a new company, you just want to go to the market as soon as possible without having to worry about all the nuts and pieces that you have to, and they don't add any value. So I think AWS kind of, it speeds up, the go-to-market. You can immediately bring your product to the market as soon as possible. You don't have to worry about all those things. So yes, they do.
We as the industry are in a huge rush. And so being able to get to market really fast, learn, get all the stuff, go, get things built, that's a very powerful story. This is that operational experience. If you don't want to spend a lot of time building infrastructure and learning how to wire it together and dealing with the fact that the network isn't wired together correctly, they do all that stuff for you. They take care of it. It's nice. It's like living in a luxury condo and having your grass mowed and somebody comes in, you're in a hotel room, somebody vacuums for you and washes your dishes and takes care of all those things. That's in a lot of ways what Amazon's been doing for you. You need to know what's going on, because that's a great model, but it is actually, in the end, more expensive to have a lot of those things done.
Yeah. What does it mean for a company like RackN?
RackN is helping customers who want to be talking about control and infrastructure and integrating it themselves. We believe that this concept of a continuously integrated data center is essential to solving the problems that let Amazon walk in and take over IT. That there is a way to radically change the ROI for running infrastructure without having everybody's infrastructure look identically the same. And that's what RackN does. RackN actually looked at the data centers and said, how do we build a data center infrastructure that uses best practices and shared software and automation, and you actually can accelerate your operations? And for us, that meant fixing fundamental problems about bare metal and RAID and BIOS and networking topology and storage, and making those things much easier to automate. And once you've done that, everything you build on top of it becomes much simpler. So you fix the operational experience. But you have to fix it at the bare metal level. Anytime you do it, otherwise you're not actually solving the root cause problem, and you're not creating a competitive solution for what Amazon offers. And it's, you can look at the HP SSD problem, where they have a firmware problem on the SSDs, where after 3.7 years, that SSD will stop reading, will stop being able to write data, and just stop. It's a hugely scary problem. So all of a sudden you have data you can't access on the SSD, and you have to patch the firmware of the SSD. This isn't a BIOS patch for the server, it's the SSD's firmware. And a lot of people haven't thought about how to patch the SSD's firmware. They just never assumed they'd ever have to. And that statement probably just sent a whole bunch of people to Amazon. Like, I never want to deal with that problem. And that's unfortunately where we are. But RackN helps people solve that problem. We take care of it so you can do things like patching the firmware of an SSD or a NIC card or a RAID controller, right? And by solving that problem, we then have actually created something where you now have much more confidence in your ability to maintain your infrastructure, and you change that cost curve. But otherwise, it's going to be really problematic. And I'm not anti-cloud. I actually, using cloud and using the APIs and learning how to automate, taking advantage of the Amazon infrastructure or any cloud's infrastructure to bootstrap a project and understand when things are going on is a great way to get started and prototype and move quickly and take advantage of what they've built. But that's not the same as going, what a production long-term workload should be and how you want to maintain your systems. And that's a big conversation. That's the hallway track here is Amazon's built all this great stuff. Are you going to use it? If you do use it, how are you going to protect yourself, from potential lock-in? If you're worried about lock-in, a lot of people say don't. And then you pull back and you're like, all right, what do I actually need to accomplish here? What could I build this myself? How would I build it? But Amazon's racing to make you say, no, I never would bother. All they've got it. I'm just going to use what they have.
Also, the total cost of ownership in the short term is different than, when you look at 10, 20 years, and you still, it's like renting an apartment or versus buying an apartment where you do build some assets over time. So everything is so kind of, the industry is very, very new in way. So I think that might also play a role at some point when people,
We do.
they have been.
One of the big differences here, though, is that if you think about this apartment house analogy, a car, rental car might be better. House typically does appreciate in value, and so you can treat it like an investment.
Right.
A server, buying a server does not
Right.
appreciate in value, and so it is a depreciating asset that you're buying and then leveraging. So it's not really the cost of the server that's the problem here; it's the operational overhead. But I don't care if you're using Amazon or you're buying your own equipment. You are responsible for operating your infrastructure. Even if Amazon takes on the bottom parts of the stacks, you better understand it. You better be prepared. You better understand what their SLA is. Because at the end of the day, you are the one servicing your customers, not Amazon. Or, and this is what everybody's afraid of, at the end of the day, it might be Amazon. And you've just made it easier for them to do that. So this is the balancing message that Amazon has as they go into space travel, newspapers, pharmaceuticals, right? Food delivery, food, everything. Are you building something in Amazon that Amazon is ultimately going to watch, copy, and model? I don't know to what extent they do that, but it definitely is something that I know people talk about.
Awesome. So Rob, I think you're heading for keynotes now.
I am going to get fully immersed and see what interesting ways Amazon's challenging the landscape.
Awesome. So we'll see you again tomorrow, and thanks for your time, and looking forward to getting more updates and all the chit chat that is happening there.
I'm taking notes. We'll talk tomorrow.